interesting question. I mean, one of the things that will do it, or certainly contribute to it, is, again, the Chinese is an extreme case, because they're creating a very large number of new positions. So one of the reasons of the dominance of men is that they were there first, so to speak, and they sit on it, and they continue to dominate. So, but when you're creating this discipline ex novo, and incidentally, more than half of the students I had in my democracy course were women, right? So, and then when you go and give lectures on this and then all over China, there are lots of women students. So I didn't perceive that when they're selecting students to go abroad or entering into the discipline ex novo, so that just being created, that there's any gender discrimination. Like off the top of my head, I would say it's, you know, roughly half-half, maybe more women than men. So that suggests that in a context where political science is expanding, women are going to do better, right? Because then the problem is going to be in Western Europe, where because of the demographic profile that's with us, that most of the countries are downsizing their various academic programs, and that makes it much more difficult to, let's say, produce some kind of parity or whatever it is when you have relatively few positions to fill. So in this sense, I would say that the prospect for women becoming equal participants or whatever it is are quite favorable in the Chinese case. I don't know if this would be true of countries like Indonesia or Korea and others, where at least my perception is it's also in Asia in general. There is this quite substantial gender equality that has been taking place in the last, I mean, China is absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, China in 30 years, I mean, if you talk to your Chinese women students, their lives have been completely transformed in a very short period of time.
But what about US and Latin America?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, in general.
Well, I can't say. Really, I can't. I mean, I just don't know enough about sort of patterns of recruitment and what's happening to the discipline in terms of expansion, But I'll just say, in any country where there is an expanding situation, where there are either new universities or more and more students who wish to take political science for whatever reason, then I think that's an advantageous situation for women. And that generally means newer democracies, newer countries, and of course countries which are still expanding demographically. Whereas in Europe, everything's contracting demographically, and that certainly makes it vastly more difficult.
One last question.
Yeah.
There is one pending, so if you answer this one quickly, we have another.
Okay. Anja Mia, Utrecht University in the Netherlands. Thank you, Philip, for sharing your observation on China in particular. As you know, I've also been based there for some time teaching, so I share most of your observations, but I would like to challenge one or two of them. What I agree with is what you sort of outlined as they are a bit crazy about controlled democracy. They really think they will do it the Chinese way, which means controlling democracy. We all know that will be very, very difficult, but anyway, they believe it. However, and also what you're saying, they should sort of try to experiment on local levels, different parts of China as well. But I would argue they are not winning the race. They are not winning the race. They are not speedy enough to really open the society, and because unrest is already there, and I think the unrest in people, the citizens, will take over. So actually it's just a matter of time until we see something that is similar to what we've just been observing in the Middle East and the Maghreb, and that's actually my question to you. You haven't said anything about what happened the last 4 or 5 weeks. Any observations on that, and what are your assumptions?
On this winning the race, I'm not quite sure, who's keeping score. But I mean, you're certainly right about one thing, and this is good, but the surprising thing is how much you can learn about this by being there and just reading the newspapers and watching the television. In other words, citizen unrest is not being kept out of sight. Right? It's there. You can read about it every single day in the newspaper. Strikes in factories, for example, demonstrations of various kinds, corruption trial, criminal scandals. I was amazed. I mean, I had some experiences with the former Soviet Union in Eastern Europe before '89, and there's no comparison at the extent to which the government is suppressing that kind of information. It's everywhere. So this way, at least, they know there's unrest. That's one reason why they want the information. I mean, they have a kind of preemptive attitude toward it. And they know that race, so far, they've been losing because they don't get the information until there's a real rupture. Either it's a strike or somebody burns themselves up, which happens occasionally, or commit suicide is another rather common feature in working factories, etc. Yeah. But I don't know about it. I mean, again, you're asking me to make a judgment in a longer term, but I'm not convinced that they are, quote, losing the race. Right? They are really engaging in a great... The other theme I didn't think that much about it is this whole business of promotion of civil society. Promotion and limitation. Please understand me. They're not just allowing anybody to associate with anybody else. Believe me, they control this process. They have the perfect corporatist rule. You can only have one association in one locality for one purpose. Now, there's a wonderful case in the newspapers where 2 chess clubs tried to form in the same village and were denied the right to form 2 chess. You can only form 1 chess club, right? So that's an example of the degree to which the Chinese penetrate, but encouraging the formation of associations, even obviously corporatist type hierarchies all over the place, right? But also even independent associations now. And the one area where the most interesting things are happening is in the environmental protection area. The Chinese are actually encouraging the formation of environmental groups. And in the environmental area, they're allowing them to form alliances between villages and even across provinces and even national hierarchies that are not created by the party. For some reason, environment and environmental systems of information about degradation of the environment, etc., are being tolerated and even encouraged in ways that would not be true about worker protest or women or whatever the other areas could be. But I have no way of judging will they win the race. But all I'm trying to get you to understand is political science is part of the race. They think political science is on their side. Political science will help them win the race. What?
Okay, well, I think, yes, on this note, the time is up, so thank you very much for leading this. Okay, I think the buses are out, and you don't want to miss it. You don't want to, hopefully, the traffic will ease up. Thank you very much.
I saw it.